timeout.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Kenny, and welcome to ESPN Classic's Top 5 Reasons You Can't Blame, a series that takes a fresh look at sports personalities and teams who are remembered largely for their mistakes, controversial moments, or questionable decisions. On April 1st, 1985, the seemingly unbeatable Georgetown Hoyas faced a heavy underdog from within its own conference, the Villanova Wildcats, for the national championship. It was a night when Cinderella wore sneakers. Before we get to our countdown, let's go back, though, to one of the glory years of Big East basketball.
That was the heyday for the Big East, without a doubt. From St. John's, Georgetown, Villanova.
Patrick Ewing, Eddie Pickney, Pearl Washington, Chris Mullin. I don't know that anybody has dominated college basketball the way we did with players.
In that Final Four, 3 of the teams were Big East teams, and a 4th team, Boston College, got beat on a last-second shot.
That was the premier basketball conference in the country. No team was more intimidating or tougher to beat than Georgetown.
Georgetown was not only the defending national champion, but they were the team America loved to hate.
Georgetown at the time was sort of the Darth Vader of college sports. Georgetown came in and the attitude was, we're going to come in, we're going to kick your butt, and go home.
And fists fly between Washington and Ewing.
We would go into gymnasiums sometimes, and because of our reputation, we could see the fear in the eyes of other teams.
And nearly punches her. They're going to throw him out.
Georgetown had one of those teams that they try to intimidate you, and they really go after you.
Blocked by Ewing.
The first play of the game, all 5 guys would foul you, because the refs would only call 1, and it would just set a tone for the way the game was going to be played.
We were the Raiders of college basketball. It was fun. Everybody hated us, and we loved kicking everybody's butt.
They usually did, too. Losing just twice by a total of 3 points, Georgetown was favored to win its 2nd straight national championship. In 1984-85, the Hoyas' defense was ranked #1 in field goal percentage, holding opponents to 40% shooting.
As Georgetown scared you on the offensive end, they just absolutely made you wet your pants on the defensive end.
Here's another one. Oh, another block by Ewing.
They had a tenacious defense. They pressed a lot. If someone did get past the guards, they would go inside, and there's Patrick, arms stretched, the intimidator.
When Patrick gets it in there, you might as well draw the shades and put the lights out.
It was a team that was just relentless in their approach, and they would just sometimes grind you down, and then you just collapse from the emotional pressure.
Look at Ewing, backwards stuff, amazing.
While Georgetown blew through the season to finish at the top of the rankings, Villanova struggled, losing 6 of its last 11 games.
It's frustration city for Mr. Massimino.
Had the NCAA tournament not been expanded from 53 teams to 64 that year, the 19-10 Wildcats likely wouldn't have made the cut.
They were horrible. They almost didn't make the tournament. They didn't know whether they were going to be selected for the tournament if they played so poorly.
Blocked by Mullin, and Mullin steals it.
We honestly didn't think we were going to get in. We probably got in by a hair. We played in a great conference, but we had 10 losses.
Seeded 8th in the Southeast region, the Wildcats surprised the basketball world by upsetting 3 top 10 teams en route to the final.
Has advanced to the final.
Waiting for them was Georgetown, which had won its last 17 games. The Hoyas were 9.5-point favorites.
Well, the Wildcats have been winning in this tournament, as you have said, by reading from the textbook. Is there a chapter that's going to work for the game tonight?
Bob, I really don't believe they can handle the kind of pressure defensively that Georgetown will utilize.
Everybody was saying, you don't beat Georgetown. Georgetown is a giant. And it was really David and Goliath.
My parents were like, I'm not telling you you're not going to win this game against Georgetown, but if it happens so that you guys get blown out, you shouldn't be disappointed because you got this far.
The winner of this one, they are crowned the champions tonight here at the Rupp Arena.
In the very first possession of the game, Ed Pinckney got the ball down low, went right at Ewing.
Pinckney, he drives, gives off to Presley, reverse layup is good.
That sort of set the tone that this was going to be a different kind of game.
As the game unfolded, I became convinced that Villanova had a chance to win. That Georgetown was not functioning.
This would be one of the greatest upsets in the history of championship games of the NCAA tournament.
I think they were frustrated. They couldn't get a run going. They couldn't really get the momentum that they were so used to getting in games.
We couldn't believe that Villanova, the school that was this tremendous underdog, was actually hanging with the big bad Hoyas.
A lot of people in this building are surprised that it's a one-point ball game right now.
Throughout the first half, Villanova found ways to penetrate the Georgetown defense, clicking on 13 of 18 shots from the field. Up 29-28 at the half, the Wildcats had built a fire within that only burned brighter in the second half.
Bring it to the left corner, Jensen for the jump. It's good. Into the lane, Pinckney, his jump is good.
It seemed like the Georgetown players were sort of like, what's going on here? This can't be happening. They're making every shot.
Our game was basically to play 40 minutes and try to wear an opponent down. I think they controlled the ball, they controlled the tempo.
I thought that they should have disrupted Villanova. I'd seen Georgetown play much better basketball games, and they did that night.
And the clock goes off, and that is it. Cinderella wears the glass slipper. So Villanova Wildcats are the champions of college basketball.
They had to almost play a perfect game to beat us. It's still a hard pill to swallow. We had opportunities to put them away, but it wasn't the case.
You had Patrick Ewing, the consensus player of the year. I've heard some coaches say it might have been the best defensive team of all time in college basketball. There was no excuse for them not to win that game.
You can blame Georgetown for losing to Villanova because they had, without a doubt, the best squad in the country. An awesome lineup. How could they possibly lose to Villanova?
You've just seen why Georgetown is blamed for losing to Villanova in the '85 title game. There are more than 5 reasons you can't blame them. Here are the best of the rest. The crowd. Most of the 23,124 fans at sold-out Rupp Arena got behind the Wildcats.
The longer Villanova hung in there and the longer this game unfolded, the arena got more and more involved in rooting for the Wildcats.
There were a lot of times throughout the course of the game where the crowd was behind us, and it was good. We felt that.
Once we started in the second half, people started to say, hey, this might be, Villanova's day. Every shot we made, the crowd responded, and the fans certainly helped us.
Another best of the rest, Al Severance. The former Villanova coach, whose teams won 413 games, died during the morning of the championship game. Rolly Massimino spoke movingly of him during the Wildcats pregame meal.
Rolly's speech was to the players, I want you to remember tonight, when Georgetown is shooting at their basket, Coach Severance is going to be up there knocking the ball away. When we're shooting at our basket, he's going to guide it in.
What Massimino always said was Severance was up there swatting away Georgetown's shots. And it had to be, because some of those shots that they put up any other night would go in.
Reason number 5, the Cinderella Tournament. When one loss sends you home, anything can happen.
The essence of the NCAA tournament is the Cinderella, the fact that in a one-game situation, any team can win and anything can happen.
As the defending national champions have been eliminated by the upstart Princeton Tigers.
Those are some of the moments that makes college basketball so unique. It's not 4 out of 7. 4 out of 7, Jimmy V has no shot against Houston.
Westberg tries about a 30-footer. No good step back. Lorenzo Charles, the Cinderella team has done it.
It's a one-game elimination tournament. A team gets hot, they can steal a game on you.
It's straight for the win. Go! Oh, my.
You can never blame a dominant team for losing a single game
in the sport of basketball, where it's 5-on-5. The biorhythms can be good or not so good on a given day.
Cinderella wears the glass slipper.
Is there anyone on this earth, then, during, or now, who thinks that if that were 2 out of 3, or 3 out of 5, or 4 out of 7, that Georgetown wouldn't have won? No.
We thought we were the better team, and we were the better team. But in a one-game situation, that's going to happen.
1 down, 4 to go. Here is reason number 4. No fear. Prior to the national championship game, the senior core of Villanova had played Georgetown 9 times in 4 years.
There wasn't an intimidation factor. They knew these guys. They had grown up playing against most of these guys.
To us, they weren't intimidating because we played against them so much and so often, and we knew everything they were going to do.
No matter how much better and much more talented and how superior one is supposed to be, that familiarity takes away fear. Familiarity between Villanova and Georgetown meant that Villanova wasn't afraid.
In 1985, Villanova lost both its meetings with Georgetown, one by 7 points and the other by 2, in overtime.
We played them competitively twice. Arguably should have won one of the games. We knew we could compete. It's just a matter of putting it all together.
We were in no way in awe of the Georgetown team. We all were confident that we could beat them.
Down into the lane, Pinckney drives on Ewing. His shot is good.
Here we are playing a league game in the national championship, and that made it even more difficult, but they deserve the credit.
Is there anybody that thought the Cats would come in here and get their doors blown off? Not happening that way.
You can't blame Georgetown for losing to Villanova in 1985 because Villanova was an experienced team that had played Georgetown tough during the regular season, that had players that weren't intimidated by Georgetown, and who all played the game of their lives that night.
Harold Jensen, the sophomore reserve guard, got hot at the right time.
Harold Jensen came in and really gave us a lift. I mean, he was tremendous. He made every big shot.
Right side, Jensen for the jump. Good.
You get into a zone, so to speak, but I felt comfortable as we got down the stretch to be willing to take some shots.
Harold Jensen played absolutely fantastic during the tail end of the season.
He played out of his mind. He was the quintessential role player who, when the big moment in his life came, he was ready, he met the moment, and it was absolutely perfect, not just for his team, but for him.
In the first round of the tournament against Dayton, Jensen, who averaged 4 points during the season, had the ball with the score tied at 49 and less than 75 seconds to play.
They went man-to-man, and Jensen picked it up and whipped it.
I found myself open. Just saw that little crack in the lane there to go in and lay it in.
Dayton was one of the toughest games in the whole tournament. If Jensen doesn't make that layup at the end, we're in trouble.
Jensen's confidence grew throughout the tournament. In the final, he scored 14 points, made one of the most important shots in Villanova's history. With less than 3 minutes left, the Wildcats trailed 54-53.
To Gary, top of the key, to Jensen on the left, back to Gary.
I found myself maybe 15, 17 feet out on the right side there and wide open, and felt it was time to pull the trigger.
Long jump, good!
You get to be the hero of a championship game because of timing. His time was perfect.
Harold Jensen, 5 for 5 from the floor in this ballgame, hasn't missed a shot in the game.
Thank God for him, because had it not been him, I couldn't tell you if I'd be sitting here or telling you that we won an NCAA tournament, because, I mean, he got hot when we needed him, and he definitely came through in a big way.
3 reasons down, 2 to go. Here is reason number 2. Daddy Mass. Coach Rolly Massimino, a passionate motivator, pushed all the right buttons.
You like to be the kind of the patriarch rather than the coach kind of thing. So the players, they call him Daddy Mass.
The team was his life. We were an extension of his family. We were there a lot. Mrs. Mass cooked many macaroni meals for us, and his program was run like a family.
He treated the staff and the team like sons. Very demanding, extremely demanding, and yet at the same time, pretty loving.
Love was not Massimino's strongest emotion in the last game of the regular season, when his boys trailed Pittsburgh by 17 at the half.
We go in at halftime, and he goes, Pinckney, McClain, and McClain. If I don't get anything out of you in 3 minutes, you're coming out of the game. Well, the first 5 minutes of the second half, we didn't play well, and he took us out the game.
That was the thing that sent us a message, especially the seniors. Your careers are just about over, and what have you accomplished?
He knew that it would motivate us, and it really did. We collectively as a group said, I mean, if we're going to get to the tournament, we got to get our act together.
Despite losing by 23, the Wildcats regrouped. 5 days later in the Big East tournament, they beat Pittsburgh 69-61.
It was more important for them to learn a lesson. If I didn't do that, I don't know whether or not we would have been able to beat Pitt at Madison Square Garden.
That victory propelled Villanova into the NCAA tournament and onto a winning streak that took it to the brink of the Final Four. But against North Carolina, the Wildcats' hot hand turned cold. Scoring just 17 points in the first half, they trailed by 5. In the locker room, Massimino was looking for comfort food.
I was extremely frustrated. We couldn't put the ball in the basket. I went in and I just tore off my tie and threw off my coat, and I said, let me tell you guys something. What I want more than getting to the Final Four. And they all looked at me, and I said, I want a big dish of pasta with clam sauce.
The team looked at him like, we're in the middle of an NCAA tournament to go to Final Four, and you're talking about eating spaghetti.
I think it took the tension off, and the kids went out and played terrific second half.
After beating North Carolina 56-44, the Wildcats upset Memphis State 52-45. The next dragon to be slain was the biggest and baddest of all, Georgetown. But due in large part to their coach, the Wildcats were ready to rumble.
Rolly Massimino has been the star of stars throughout the tournament. And this basketball team believes they can beat Georgetown.
He was able to make these guys believe in themselves in a way probably no other coach at that time could.
Villanova 10 seconds away from winning the national championship of college basketball.
He was just this crazy Italian. And he convinced his players, why can't you guys do it?
And Villanova is the champion of college basketball.
I give an awful lot of credit to Rolly Massimino. The players took their cue from their head coach. They went into the game believing that they could take down Goliath.
April Fool's Day. For the first time in history, an NCAA championship was decided on April 1st, and the joke was on Georgetown.
The actual origins of April Fool's joking are unknown. The most popular theory is that this has to do with a calendar change. When New Year's Day was changed to January 1st, and some people didn't get the news, and so they continued the older practice of celebrating New Year's on April 1st, and they were ridiculed and made fun of.
I'm sure John Thompson and Rolly Massimino both read the newspaper that day and saw the caption of the date as being April Fool's Day and probably figured that something extraordinary was going to happen.
Extraordinary? How about miraculous? Villanova made 22 of its 28 attempts from the field, shooting 79%. It was a Final Four record, and just enough to win 66-64.
It was just the planets were aligned, the cosmos were aligned. It was April Fool's Day. Stuff happens.
I knew that they'd have to play a perfect game in order to beat us, and they did. So I just figured they made a deal with the devil.
They had an extraordinary game. You know, they played extremely well. They shot an unrealistic percentage.
Wildcats shooting a sizzling 77% from the ballgame, only missed 6 shots from the field.
Georgetown played great, but there's only so much you can do when the opposing team is shooting close to 80%. I mean, that's like God's out on the court, you know, and Jesus playing point guard. You don't have a chance.
So Villanova Wildcats are the champions of college basketball.
The joke is on them in that they shoot over 50% from the field. We have 17 turnovers. We shoot almost 80% for the game and win the basketball game. When's that going to happen again? Had to be a day like April Fool's.
Wayne McClain and Eddie Pinckney run over to the scores table. They're jumping up and down.
And we all start getting this chant going like, April Fools, you know, the trick's on you.
I'm going, you know what? They're right. They fooled everybody.
Well, there you have it, the top 5 reasons you can't blame Georgetown for losing to Villanova in the 1985 NCAA Final. Since that unforgettable upset, neither school has returned to the title game. I'm Brian Kenny. Thanks for watching.